Vito, go ahead.
Uh, Dr. Pretto, I sent you an email concerning the Chancellor's Regulations A101. Did you get that, sir?
I did see an email, yes.
So I have some concerns about the regulation as it was. Well, let me give you some background first. I'm sure you have it. On October 20th, I testified before PEP, and I put my testimony in the chat about a regulation concerning non-zone schools. Now, non-zone schools, as it relates to District 20, specifically is where my kids go to middle school, where I'm the PTO president, and that's the Christa McAuliffe School. That's, I think, the only totally non-zone school that we have in District 20. Would that be correct, sir?
There was a district-wide program for the admissions process this year. It only had district-wide program. There were no zones.
But 187 is considered a non-zone school.
Yes, it's a district-wide program. It doesn't have a local zone.
And I'm sharing my screen now. Just give me a second.
Yes.
Can everyone see the screen? Okay, great. So this is the policy change that was approved and put into effect on October 20th. And maybe I'm reading this so wrong, and maybe I don't understand it. So if someone could, clarify for me, that would be so helpful. But according to this, and this is what was approved, children seeking to register at a non-zone school in 1st to 5th, 7th to 8th grades should visit a family welcome center, which is in the borough on 89th Street across from you, and anytime throughout the year request a placement in the school. And it says specifically in 3, non-zone schools must admit students throughout the year based on seat availability, including after the conclusion of the admission process on a first come, first served basis. I mean, did I read that correctly, sir? The reason I'm asking is there's no qualifiers that I see. I don't see, it says, well, not now because of COVID. It was passed during COVID. I don't see anything that says only for certain conditions like safety or emergency or moving into the residence. It just says very clearly that if a parent wants to go to a non-zone school and there are seats available, that they are allowed to go to that school throughout the whole year, anytime between, September and June. Can you tell me if that is the District 20 policy and if they are following this brand new regulation as it was passed?
It's a chancellor's regulation, so it's citywide. There's not a District 20 policy. What's the question, though?
The question is, and I have permission from the individual, I testified that I had a problem with this regulation because I believe that because of the lack of transparency and the lack of, basically the lack of information, that parents who would want to go to the school are not going to know that the seats are available. And if they do apply to it, that they won't be allowed to. And a parent, sure enough, who I know wanted the school, put in for it and was told that District 20 doesn't allow it to happen. And they're all saying, they're saying a bunch of stuff, and I'm allowed to speak to this because the parent wants me to elevate this concern because I raised this concern at PEP and it was disregarded. Are enrollment numbers secret? I should be able to call up any principal and say, do you have seats available in your school? I mean, that's not secret. It's an SLT issue. It's a budget issue. It shouldn't be a secret, should it?
I don't understand the question.
There's several questions. There's a parent that is being denied. There's being denied their right to come to a school after this regulation clearly, in my opinion, clearly allows them to do so. And it's very concerning for me because it raises the issue that I've raised again and again, which is the lack of transparency and the appearance, at the very least, of impropriety.
Well, transfers are referred to the enrollment office, like, the Family Welcome Center, and they're reviewed on a case-by-case basis. Usually those decisions are made by the enrollment office. Sometimes they will come to the superintendent's office or my office. Beyond that, I'm not going to discuss anyone's individual case in a public meeting.
We're not naming any names, and I'm saying in general, if there are seats available, and it should be public knowledge if there are seats available in any school, and that parent wants it, is there any reason based upon this regulation to deny them? Why would you say it's a case-by-case basis? It doesn't take case-by-case basis.
I'd have to say that it would be taken in a case-by-case basis.
So that contradicts what it says in here, which is it's supposed to be filled on a first come, first served basis.
I would say in general, I mean, that is definitely a policy. However, there are factors that come into play in addition to this, and that's why I have to say a case by case basis. I don't want to say anything in general that will be taken to someone's individual circumstance that would not apply. So there's a lot of factors that could come into play. So that's why I'm trying not to like give a final answer on this, because there's a lot of potential nuance that could occur in an individual case that would make the decision go one way or the other.
May I ask you, our enrollment numbers in real time, is that privileged information?
I don't know. Whenever I go to the DOE website, I see like the overall numbers for the enrollment. I don't know how often those are updated or anything. That I don't know.
What about at the school level, Superintendent? Just on a daily basis at the school level in the district?
I can take it back to enrollment and find out, because enrollment are the folks who do work with the school's numbers and with the other factors, and very frequently work with the superintendent's office around some of these other factors that come into play regarding the availability of a seat, and in addition to the history of the seats either being or not being available. So the existence of a seat, I guess the simplest way to put it is that the existence of a seat doesn't give me 1 second, doesn't occur in a vacuum. It's not just, the seat has not kind of been there the whole time. It is, so because of that, it's important that, again, that's why for the case-by-case basis. But the question around, is it, as you say, privileged information? By privilege, what do you mean?
Is there any reason why it shouldn't be public knowledge that 187 has 6 open seats in 7th grade, 4 open seats in 6th grade, and 8 open seats in 8th grade?
Well, I mean, it sounds like you know better than I do.
I just made up those numbers. I just made up those numbers. But I do know there are parents in this district that would take their 8th grader in May and put them in 187. And this regulation clearly says they have a right to do so. It has no qualifiers. And I'm just commenting that I believe they should be able to do so, no matter who it is. And if you just tell me what some of those hypothetical factors would be that might, inviolate this law, I mean, I would really appreciate it.
Got it. It's not a law; it's a regulation. As far as a current circumstance that we're all dealing with, that we would definitely take into account are social distancing and room sizes. So, right now there are, for example, there is an allowable number of children who can be in a middle school classroom. However, that doesn't match up with some of the room sizes that we have. Some of our schools which have been measured in order to allow for 3 feet of distance between children during our social distancing. So in some cases where, say, you could have 33 children in a classroom based off of the agreement in the collective bargaining with the U of T, however, in this classroom, we can only fit a range of 26 to 29 children. So in that case, we wouldn't want to put a 30th child in that class if it's going to, make the child overcrowded. That's a specific thing that has happened, this year that we've really been grappling with. We had we had to really work with a lot of families, and I appreciate all of their patience as well as the principals involved. And District 20 has had a history of overcrowding and overflowing of zoned programs to alternate sites when there's no more space in a grade level or what have you. And this year, we had 2 schools that we had to create similar plans for beginning in the middle of August because of the hitting the limit of children that we could fit with regard to the social distancing capacity guidelines that were given by room. So that's one thing that we've been really grappling with this year in every single school, and really kind of has created a huge challenge for principals and their teams to manage and monitor how children and adults are spread across the classrooms in order to make sure that everyone is, you know, first and foremost saved as the nature of the pandemic progresses. That's a new one that we're kind of dealing with here. That was a factor that was in existence when we returned last year. However, because of the number of children who returned to school, it wasn't as much of a concern because the percentage of children overall in a school, we didn't have a school that had more than 55 or 58% of their overall student enrollment returned to school in person. So it wasn't as big of a deal. We could spread them across the building. But now that we're all back in school, these room capacity guidelines have been really challenging and have helped me have a new lens on how to get to know the buildings in the district. And some of them have very interesting layouts and designs in terms of how big the classrooms are. So that has been definitely a challenge. I don't want to harp on that one, but that one has been a huge factor in how principals have been challenged in terms of creating classes in cohorts and placing classes in classrooms. All the way into we've had the lunch discussion and recess discussion that has also factored into this.
Well, then, so if things loosen up in January, then this would be a revisited issue. This could be a revisited issue.
I don't know. Like what I do know is that I'm definitely going to take this question back to the enrollment office and see. But and in terms of the question around how you say privileged information around the number of seats available in a grade level. But I will say that both in my experience as a district leader as well as a school leader, that seats on a grade level do carry some potentials with other factors, most notably and newly this year and relevant for safety wise is room capacities, but there's other factors that can come into play that do really demand a case by case review of the of a request that you're referring to.